okay. Shit. Let's go force it. Let's go force it tonight. Nancy, where you at? Let's go force it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Bartise. What is going on, y'all? Thanks for having me. Thanks for flying back from Miami just for this. So I appreciate you, and this is going to be great. This is my first time meeting you in person, of course, but your energy in person literally reminds me of like episode 1 of actually seeing you on the show, and you had the outgoing energy and super positive. And so it's like meeting you in person, you have the same energy. You know, you're very outgoing, very cool guy right off the bat. How do you feel right now? You know, I know it's been almost 2 years since you filmed the show. Yeah. How's life for you? Life's great right now. You know, it has been, I think it's been like 18 months since like me and Nancy's wedding day. So a lot's happened since then. It's only been probably 2 or 3 months since the airing of the season. And that's probably, after that's probably when everything got really crazy. So life right now is good. I'm still working, still got my career, still in the gym, still hitting the fitness pretty hard, and doing stuff like this. So it's exciting. Perfect. I mean, people want to know how's the love life right now, right? Love life right now. That's a big question, isn't it? Yeah, you know, I'm single right now. Single, dating, but I'm not looking for anything super serious. You know, I think it was, I owed it to myself, and I owed it to my future wife and future life partners to kind of take this whole experience and learn, kind of watch myself, watch how I am. And I'm kind of blessed to have gone through this Love is Blind thing, because it's one thing going through the process, one thing dating blindly, becoming engaged, kind of putting your faith into the experiment. And it's a completely opposite thing, or completely different thing, watching it back, you know, watching yourself and seeing how you interact with your partner, seeing how you fall in love, seeing how you take criticism. And so for me, I felt like I owed it to myself and to my future partner to look at that, dissect it, and try and grow from it. So I'm not focused on dating anybody right now. A lot of people said that they believe that you might have been too young at age 25 to go on a dating show such as Love is Blind and try to find love blindly. Right. What made you want to kind of go outside the box and jump into that world and try to see if you can find the love of your life on a blind TV show? So that's an interesting question, because yes, that's a big criticism of not only of me, but of TV shows in general. Actually, I just was looking on Instagram last night, and the Bachelor season like 27 just got released, and the cast was released, and everybody was critical of how young the cast was. And it made me think of like myself with Love is Blind, because I was cast at 25 years old. And a huge part of the casting process for Love is Blind is, why are you ready for marriage? And so all the producers and the casting agents were concerned with my youth. And I was just as honest as I could with them. I was like, listen, if you're going to ask me why I'm ready for marriage, I'm going to tell you, I am not. And here's why. And I got a lot of criticism for this, for saying the I am not. And here's why. I have not met the person to put me in the mindset to where I can be like, yes, I can spend the rest of my life with you. So that fact makes me think I am not ready for marriage. However, if I do meet that person, I will not shy away from saying, will you marry me? So that's kind of how my casting process was. And here's why I definitely understand where you're coming from, right? Is I got married at 20 years old. When I was 18, 19, if somebody asked me, when did I want to get married? I'd probably tell them 24 to 26 years old, right? So you don't know when that moment's going to come. So you're not going on to the show saying, okay, I'm going on the show to get married. Right. You're going on the show to see what happens. That's when you know. And everybody watching the show thought that Raven was going to be the one for you, and that you guys were going to go all the way through with it. But then down the road, things start to change, and you start to build this relationship with Nancy. Right. What was the biggest difference between conversations with Raven and conversations with Nancy that made you choose Nancy? I had a strong connection with Raven that was based on like lifestyle and fitness interests. And we had like diet talks and stuff like that. Me and Nancy's conversations there was also that kind of lifestyle component, but it was also, Nancy reminded me of home. Nancy was more like a comforting conversation. When I was in the pod with Raven, I remember feeling like, okay, I'm bringing the energy. I'm trying to, she's trying to play catch up here as far as energy goes. With me and Nancy, it was like a cat and mouse chase. I was like, who's going to bring the energy? Who's going to like keep it lively? And we took turns doing that. So, and the specific moment I remember when I was like, I'm going with Nancy, was they don't do a good job explaining this. So you date all day, okay, and at like maybe 9 p.m. you have the opportunity to stay for what's called night dating, and night dating goes until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And so you can either stay or you can go back to go to sleep. So during this night date I had with Raven, it's probably 1:30 in the morning, and we're supposed to sit in this pod for like 2 hours. I remember just in my core, I was just thinking like, dang, I want this to be Nancy instead.
I wish I was talking to Nancy. Like, you're just tired. You're just like, you have, some snacks around. You're just laying around being comfortable. I'm sitting there on this couch like, man, I wish it was Nancy. So the next day, I told Raven that, and I told Nancy that. And I was like, Nancy, I'm all in on you. And so.
There was a part of that show, there was a clip where you're pouring your heart out to Raven, and on the other end, she was working out.
Yeah, about that.
When you see that on the show, right? It's like, imagine if the roles are reversed and the girl is pouring her heart out to you, and you're on the other end doing push-ups, sit-ups, and you're like, yeah, babe, yeah. It's like, you're not really focusing on the words that I'm saying, but I'm like trying to build this connection with you, and you're working out.
Right. And you know what? And I'm going to sit here and defend Raven on that, actually. But I do like the point you just made about how if the roles were reversed and if it was me working out versus and Raven talking.
Yeah. I mean, you would have got lit up online saying, you're all into yourself. All you do is care about your body.
Right. It would have been, and that's, again, like part of the audience of the show is going to talk like that. But no, I'm going to defend Raven because, like I said, some of those dates were either late at night, 1, 2 in the morning, or for 5 hours long. And so, it just so happened it was bad timing for me to decide to open up that much at the time that she was doing some jumping jacks.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, I can defend her there. And actually we ended up laughing about that. So the way they made it look was like, oh, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's not the case. We ended up laughing about it, and I think we connected about it later. And actually, when we were filming the reunion, I saw her at the airport, and after we solved that particular scene, I was like, do you remember what actually happened? Like, we laughed about that for the rest of the date. And she was like, yeah, they kind of screwed me there. So it's crazy how much, it's not changed, but how much they can like take a scene and add like an extra layer of impact to the viewer.
Well, and even when I talked to Cole, I defended you on a scene that they showed on TV where it was like you guys had a pool scene, and then Raven walks off, and it shows you kind of like staring in the direction that she's walking off, kind of like lost. And I was telling Cole, I said, that could have been 2 totally different clips where you're just maybe on your own staring into the distance and just enjoying your day.
Well, I was staring at Nancy.
Yeah.
She was in the pool too, right?
Yeah. So it's like you could have been staring at Nancy, but it gets clipped to the minute Raven's walking off and you staring.
I mean, that's editing magic, and that's, a big risk that we sign up for. We understand the risk.
A lot of people said that you received a little bit of backlash by saying that the only reason Raven ended up with SK is because you pretty much moved on from her. I mean, at the time of the pods, she had, conversations with SK and you, and clearly chose to go your way. Do you defend the statement that you made about, that is the only reason she was with him? Because if you were ready to propose to Raven, she would have said yes. I'm 100% confident in that too. So it does make sense that because you moved on, she moved on to SK, but at the same time, she would have said yes to you.
Right. I mean, I can't put any different than you just
so I don't think you said anything wrong, but there was some backlash for you making that comment. And I just wanted to clear that up on air. It was a simple comment that she would have said yes to you.
I made a lot of comments that I feel like a lot of people were probably thinking, but you don't need to say it out loud. I just was very honest the whole time, and sometimes brutally honest, and it came to bite me in the ass at some points. But, I would rather be brutally honest than lying. It's easier for me to sit here and defend my honesty than it would be for me to sit here and defend my lies.
Right.
And, I was never dishonest. So
now you propose to Nancy. She says yes. What the feelings I'm sure are crazy. At that moment when you proposed to her, was that the first time where you kind of had these thoughts of, okay, I just found the love of my life. I am going to get married to this woman? Or it was just kind of like, okay, I'm proposing to move to the next step and see how far.
And you know what? That's a great question, because that's how I phrased my actual proposal speech. So on proposal day, we had 15 minutes to go in the pod and either propose, not propose, or formulate your thoughts and get through that time frame. I knew I was proposing going into that day. And I knew what I was going to say and how my proposal was going to sound. And everybody thinks the experiment ends at the proposal. No, that's when it starts. Right. Really, that's the experiment is really after you propose. Yeah. Can it work? Can you take this connection that you have developed without seeing somebody and make it work? That's when your stress test. That's when your pressure test. That's when you, in my situation, I am now introduced to this other girl, Raven, who I was falling in love with. And honestly, like, my number 3 was Zay, and that's never shown. So for me, it was Nancy, Raven, Zay, this girl Kalikia, who's number 4, and Colleen was 5. So like I had 4 of my top 5 move on with me through the process.
Did you have any good conversations with Zay that weren't shown on TV?
I had some good conversations in the pool with Zay. That whole day, the fateful day for me and Cole.
It seems like a lot of great conversations happen in the pool.
That pool day was a mess.
Was it just a lot of alcohol? Or what was it about the pool? Because I mean, Cole had some issues in the pool. I should say you got some heat, right? I mean, and you had a pretty good conversation in the pool, I should say. You and Raven had a good conversation in the pool. You were definitely kind of opened up to letting her know your feelings and your side of the story. Again, you got a little bit of heat for that. Can you explain actually what happened that day?
Yeah, I'll tell you about the pool. I have a lot to say about the pool. I don't know how much time we have here, but I have a lot to say about the pool.
Take your time.
Okay, so the way that whole thing worked was we vanned over to this. Actually, this scene is shot at a pool that was used in the movie The Hangover 3. So it's this crazy, beautiful pool overlooking the hills of Malibu. And so it's kind of getting you in the mood right when you walk in. So me and Nancy walk into this pool, and probably for the first 10 to 15 minutes, it's hang out, have fun. They had food for us. It was drinks for us. And then after that, boom, we're getting on to business. So it's a rectangular pool. Let's just say the girls are in stations, right? So, you know, you have Raven in the middle, Nancy in this corner, Alexa, Zenab, and then Colleen. So the girls are not going to move. I'm starting over here with Alexa, and we have like maybe 10 to 12 minute dates, okay? And the guys are going to rotate around. That way every guy is talking to every girl at her station. In between rounds, it's tequila shots, right? You know, we're just like ripping shots. Course, and they start me with Alexa in this corner. They start Cole behind me, right? So our last round, my last round is going to be Raven. His last round is going to be Zenab. So by that time, we're probably, 9, 10 shots deep. The girls are drinking too, so we're having a good time. The purpose for that day, or the purpose for those conversations, was to talk about how you think the other couples are doing. So when I was talking to Alexa, and not a lot of people know this either, is like we're not just sitting there talking, like, we can do that for a little bit, but it's going to get dry. So there's production teams around with prompting us questions. There's never a script, but they give you talking points.
But on TV, it could be painted as like you're talking crap about the other couple,
right?
Not knowing that the whole point of it is to talk about them and kind of explain it.
So moving on with the story, it's me and Alexa talking about how we think maybe SK and Raven are doing, or Matt and Colleen are doing. Then I move on to Zay. We talk about the other couples. When I get around the horn to Raven, the questions come my way from the producers are no longer, how do you think the other couples are doing? Now these questions are, Bartise, do you think Raven's hot? Raven, what would you say Bartise at a bar? And at this time, I was like, fuck it. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll be honest right now,
Which, by the way, guys know when alcohol is involved, right? Like, you tend to loosen up a little bit, and sometimes you do say things that maybe you would take back, but it's like, shots of tequila will get you to say some things that, you might not say on a regular day.
Yeah, I mean, true. But like, given the environment of the experiment, I thought when I was saying it that it was okay.
Yeah,
because you're being asked, but because like, never are you going to be in a situation where you are in the pool with your current fiance with 4 other girls you've dated, and so I was like, there's never anything in my life where I could compare that to, and I will never do this again. Nobody knows what's actually happening and going on in my head or in all of our heads. I'm just going to be honest as I can. I don't think this is wrong because I'm still with Nancy, who's literally right here as I'm having this conversation with Raven. It's just I'm giving Raven compliments. And so looking back, it looks a lot worse than how, it went down. Because after that conversation with Raven, I went to hang out with Nancy for the rest of the day, and that was that.
And then, so you said you also had a conversation with Zay in the pool. How'd that conversation?
I had a conversation with Zay in the pool. It just started off with her just being like, we had one specific date in the pods where I asked her to describe like what she feels most comfortable going out in, like clothing wise. And she actually described an outfit that I find attractive on women, which is like a tight black dress and like a clutch. And that's what she likes to go out in. And I'm like, that's typical for Dallas. It makes sense. That looks hot. And she could not pick up in the pause that I liked that. It's because I didn't say, I like that. She thought that I did not like that. And she thought that was my reason for kind of cutting her off the list and going with Raven and Nancy. So in the pool, I swam up to her and I'm like, you ready for this day? And she's like, oh yeah, I have a bone to pick with you. And I'm like, oh God, what are we doing here? Yeah, it was about that. And she thought that was the reason why I moved on from her, but that's not the case.
Did physical attraction have a role once you were able to see Nancy, once you were able to see Raven, once you were able to see Zay? Because for a while, you're just talking to them without able to put a face to the image, right? And it's like, even in business, right? You're talking to emails, through emails with people left and right. But when you actually see them in person, everything kind of changes once you're able to put a face to the voice. How did it feel for you the first time when the doors open and you saw Nancy for the first time?
That is, I think, and I wish they showed more of the pause. There was more of a build up to that moment because it happens really so quick within the first 2 episodes. For us, it was literally, I think it was 11 days. It was 10 days until I saw her. So I formed all those emotions, proposed on day 9, saw her on day 10. That is a long freaking time. And so for me, seeing her the first time, there's no way that I'm going to feel anything besides excited, because it was just like such a build up. And I mean, I think both of us, me and Nancy, both blacked out. I remember, I think it was probably like a Friday where I got to see her. We didn't go to Malibu until Monday morning. So that whole weekend we had to be isolated because they didn't want, the cameras on us without each other. And so I didn't see her again until Monday. I forgot what she looked like. I didn't remember what she looked like. I remember I saw her Friday, and the next time I saw her was in a van in Malibu on Monday. And I was like, oh, okay, this is right. But yeah, just the crazy excitement and just joy of finally seeing this person that you fell in love with and decided to say, hey, let's see if we can spend the rest of our life together.
Did the feelings in the pod match the feelings of spending the first day with her?
Yeah, it was cloud 9.
What was the first red flag to you?
This was the day of the pool meeting, the infamous pool meeting that kind of just like crucified me and Cole. So during that scene, and this is kind of a sad story, during that scene in the pool, my sister was on the phone with my producer texting him saying, hey, give my brother the phone. My grandpa's dying. And so obviously we don't have any phones. We don't have any access to the outside world. We don't have TVs, radios. We don't have alarm clocks, right? So we are not prisoners, but we're like, there's somebody with us at all times, taking us where we need to be, telling us what's happening. I remember asking my handlers what's going on with the PGA Championship, and that's the year Phil Mickelson won. Like that's how low key we were. Mm-hmm. And so during this pool scene that everybody in production knows is going to be so important because they're waiting for Cole and Colleen to have their conversation, me and Raven to have our conversation. My grandpa literally dies. So they pull me out of the pool real quick. They take me away to do what's called an OTF, like an on-the-fly interview. So I remember getting back to this bungalow and we're, all the tequila and everything, feeling good, feeling excited. It's me and Nancy. This is my fiance. They have fun together and our night together. And I get this phone and it's my sister's number. And so I'm like, oh my God, are they letting me call? Like it's FaceTime. Like, oh, Nate, come here, Nancy, come on. And it's my sister and my mom when I answer it, and they're both in tears crying. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, your heart just drops.
Because I was like, why are they crying? And then my mom's literally in the hospital, and she like pans the phone, and my grandpa is just laying in the hospital bed, just dead. And so I literally just dropped to the ground in this bungalow, and I'm just like, what? That snapped me so hard back to reality, back from this fairy tale, back from this like cloud 9 and experiment, and I just wanted to be alone. And so when you mentioned red flag, and the reason I tell this story is because at a time like that, where I have this woman that I'm in love with more than any woman I've ever loved in my life, and I want to be alone, that kind of stuck out to me. It's like, why do I not want her to hold me? Why do I not want to hold her? What ended up happening was I went to the producers, and I remember they like brought me a bottle of Jack, and shout out Pal, because she just went and got me a free ass bottle of Jack Daniels and just left me alone. And I ended up sneaking out. I almost got kicked off the show. Okay, so me and Nancy were sitting in our room, production team left, and I was like, I needed to talk to somebody. And I just didn't want it to be Nancy. I don't know why. In that moment, I just did not want it to be Nancy. Maybe it's because I have trouble dealing with that type of emotion. I am never sad. I rarely get sad. I rarely get mad. But that overwhelming feeling, I just didn't know how to process. So I snuck out. Nancy comes with me. We leave our bungalow, and you're not supposed to do this. Like, we don't even have room keys. We leave our bungalow. We're hopping over fences, and we're in this like construction area because this resort we're at is half of it's like under construction. So to get from one side to the other, you have to go through all these blown out trailers and alleyways, and it's dark outside. And so we're literally running and hopping fences. And I'm looking for Matt's bungalow because he was my boy in the pods, and he still continues my boy to this day. And so I'm like, this is the guy I need to be with. I got the bottle of Jack with me. Nancy's like not too far behind. We're running. I'm seeing production team. I'm seeing camera crews. Like, it's like a video game. Like, I'm trying to escape this problem in my bungalow to go hang out with my bro. And I'm hearing on the walkie, like, where's Bartise? Where's Bartise? And I don't end up getting to match because when I got there, he was having his blow up scene with Colleen. Like they were fighting.
At the time that you're trying to arrive.
I was outside the bungalow. I could see them fighting. And I'm like, okay, Nancy, we can't go ruin this. So finally one of the handlers finds me and he's like, dude, I heard what happened. Let me just get you back safe. Like everybody's pissed off at you. Like they're talking about maybe getting you off this. I'm just like, okay, is it that serious? Like my grandpa just died and you guys held me. If you would have let me talk to him in the pool, I'd have to say goodbye. Yeah. You know? And so that whole moment was like the first time I realized like what it was just in my head. Like, why don't I want Nancy here for this moment with me?
Mm-hmm. And that's tough. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people don't see that. And then that there should have been some type of disclaimer in the show. I feel like at least when that happened to give the audience a little taste of what you're going through, right?
Yeah.
Because that is a lot to deal with. And for that to not even be shown on the show or like a little disclaimer saying that you're going through a hard loss at that time. Mm-hmm. So that maybe helps explain what's going on or why you might be feeling a certain type of way that day or that night or the next day. That should have been addressed, Yeah. But thank you for sharing that and I'm sorry for your loss, by the way, that's tough to deal with.
I mean, at this point, it's just like, I have to move on now because I know you think of a lot of things when you're doing reality TV. One of the things is the cameras, everything, right? Who is going to see this? Is it going to make sense for them when they see this? I know they're not going to see what happened last night. And if I act like that has affected me, it's not going to make sense. There's going to be no continuity, we call it. So it's almost like just shelve it. Just hold it all inside. The next day we actually wake up and we have brunch together and we call our families. So it was me calling my family, introducing them to Nancy, and I just talked to them like literally 12 hours before. So it wasn't like I haven't talked to you in forever. It was like, hey, how y'all doing? My mom was on the train to the hospital. She calls her family and then we fly back to Dallas.
We got to get into the abortion topic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tough to watch. I was definitely on your side when it comes to that topic. I feel like I believe that if God blesses you with the ability to have a child, that's your DNA. That's you. That's I'm a man of 3 kids. I have 3 kids, and I love those kids so much. So that kind of hit a nerve watching because, and not to of course throw any shade on Nancy, but to find out that you would possibly want to abort a child because it's not perfect in your view, it hurts a lot of viewers seeing that, right? Because what happens if you have a child and you think it's the perfect child and then 3 to 6 months later you find out it has a disability? What do you do at that point? Of course she has her opinions, you have yours, and it's her body and it's her choice. And I know people in the comments might say, you don't understand a woman's body. This has nothing to do with the body. It's more of the decision to decide that you don't want to have this child because of its disability.
Right.
Can you walk me through that full conversation? Was there anything not shown on cameras? Just, I guess, the full detail behind that story, because it was huge.
It was a huge factor in my ultimate decision. And so the conversation was much longer. However, the show did a good job of accurately portraying it. Mm-hmm. So yes, the question was posed to me, what would you do if, we had a child that we plan on having and it was born with a disability? And my answer was, just save some money, take some classes, do whatever we can to give this child that we agree to have the best possible life. And hers was to, terminate the pregnancy. And that at first I thought it was a joke. I was like, you're a speech language pathologist. It did not make sense for me to hear her saying this. And so specifically on that issue of terminating a pregnancy because it's going to be hard for us or hard for the child with a disability was the problem. Because to me, that was like taking the easy way out. Now that conversation transitioned to just abortions in general. And I mean, honestly, like I'm happy that we had this conversation. I'm happy that Nancy and I were both confident enough and open enough to share this not only with each other, but with these $160,000 cameras that are staring at our face. And we know millions of people are going to hear this conversation because it is so polarizing of an issue. But at the same time, I was not anywhere near mature enough to be talking about this at all. And since then, I'm 27 now. I've dated girls since Nancy. And I've learned a lot more about the human body. And my answer is completely different now. I think what ended up being aired was like me saying, oh yeah, I'm cool with abortion. You can just don't do it again. Which was very much my mindset there was like, don't just be going out and just like having sex with all these guys and getting pregnant and just being like, okay, never mind. I'm just going to, throw that one away too. Don't just collect them. That was my mindset when I was saying that. Now it's like, you know what? I have no say in that because I've dated girls that have had abortions and what they've had to go through, not from me, but from previous stuff, what they had to go through and what they described to me is truly something that I will never have to do, thankfully. And so it's completely up to them. Yeah. That's my answer now.
Yeah.
And I was not anywhere near mature enough to think like I'm thinking now when I had that conversation with Nancy.
Yeah. And of course, in Nancy's defense, we're not choosing sides and saying there's a right or wrong. Both sides of the stories have their opinions, and both opinions are very strong and very important. And I think it's just abortion is a big conversation in the United States right now, and it keeps going. And it definitely is a woman's body and her choice. And from what I've heard, like when they go into the abortion clinic, they make them watch like videos of babies and things. So it's like, I'm sure it breaks a woman down, even having to go through all that. And it's tough to deal with. And even though they might have only clipped a little moment of that scene, I appreciate you sharing that with us just so we can kind of get to know your side of the story and your opinion on it.
Right. No, so I just want to reiterate because we keep saying red flag. The issue for me in that conversation was the taking the easy way out, because that did not align with the woman I fell in love with in the pods. Because when I fell in love with Nancy in the pods, I expressed my love for her as being, wow, you are so caring, motherly, nurturing. She wanted a basketball team full of kids. She literally said that. She wants a basketball team full of kids. What are the odds all those kids are going to be perfect? Like, that didn't make any sense that when she said that to me. So it just kind of tipped me a little bit away from who I thought she was in the pause.
And that does start to almost like take over a little bit more, where you're almost, even though you might have had this crazy love for this person, these things start to come up and it's kind of covering the love, because even though you have love for this person, these red flags and these things start to pop up left and right, and it starts to mess with you mentally. You're on a short time frame already. So now you're kind of battling inside of your head, the goods, the bads, and trying to kind of find a good balance while you're supposed to say, yes, I do within a few days.
Right. That's exactly right. And so fast forward probably until, probably 10 days after we're together in Dallas. We probably have 2 weeks left together until wedding day. That's when I kind of I didn't ignore the first few problems that we had back in Dallas, but I kind of just put them on the back burner. I was like, let's do a fresh start here. Let me try and do some things that remind me of who I fell in love with in the pods. And so that's when we did the salsa date, because salsa was something that we talked about doing in the pods. That I don't think they showed us talking about salsa, but that was something we connected on the pods. And that's when we did the bracelet date, because that was my idea with my tattoos and for the women in my life. So it was kind of like a permanent kind of thing that we were going to wear together. And so doing those things helped me remember who I fell in love with, Nancy from the pods, and ultimately like get through the last 2 weeks of our experiment together. That being said, everybody's asking like, why did you ultimately say no at the altar? Is because I couldn't only look at those 2 weeks, right? And so when Nancy talks about getting blindsided, the last 2 weeks, they were great. If the last 2 weeks of our relationship in Love is Blind were the full experiment, or if the last 2 weeks were how we felt throughout the entire way, that's a yes. But that's not the case. The case was, it was great in the pods. It was kind of hell for 5 to 6, 7 days in the middle. And then Bartise, ignore that, get back to where you were in the pods and see if it works. And it just didn't make sense for me to say yes, especially being 25 years old. There was like a part of me that was like, being young has its pros and cons. Pros, I have time. I don't have to rush into this. I don't have to say yes just to say yes to get married, because I feel a sense of urgency. And so when I was interviewing and casting for this show, I made it very clear that I don't want to date 15 girls that are here to get married. Because then it's just like, who's desperate? I didn't want that desperation. I wanted to get married because we want to get married, not because, I need to find a man now, or I need to find a wife now. didn't want to do that. And I didn't find that with Nancy. I found Nancy was there same reason I was there.
What is your opinion on her brother and, you know, him? How is he in person compared to what he portrayed himself to be on the show? Is there a difference? Did he try to play a bigger image on the show in front of the cameras, or can you, you know, dive a little bit into that moment for us?
Yeah. So there's a lot that didn't get shown with her family meeting. That I don't really want to discuss it. It's
okay.
The family was a much bigger role in my no than what is displayed. And her brother's behavior is spot on for what I would expect, regardless if there's cameras there or not. So it was probably a little exaggerated because of the cameras. Like, he knew that he wanted to put on a show. He wants to be that brother's protecting his sister. But if it were my sister, that's not how I would act. That's how I would feel. But that's not how I would act. I know my mother wouldn't act that way either. Yeah, but I just can't talk about it.
Yeah. I guess just the whole family experience, was it overall a good experience for you to keep moving forward, or did it kind of have you check out a little bit more at that point?
Overall me meeting her family? Mm-hmm. No, it was a horrible experience.
Yeah.
But I like I said, I can't talk about it.
When you went back and watched the show, did you feel like you might have said some things that were hurtful?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of things that were hurtful. I remember sitting up in that bed in our bungalow in Malibu and explaining, like, you know, the whole Raven and SK kind of sitting separately, and like Raven getting a bunch of attention and stuff like that. I'm like, what the hell am I saying?
But it did seem like you had some drinks then.
Of course, I was drunk for 2 months of my life. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was like, I was encouraged. Encouraged.
And it's like, it's no excuse, but guys out there understand, like, when you're hammered off of tequila and stuff like that, you're gonna say some stuff where in the morning you're gonna apologize for it, right? So it doesn't necessarily describe who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just alcohol talking, right? Right. And did you start to lose physical attraction towards Nancy as the days went on? And if so, why?
Yeah. So once we got back to Dallas and I started to, like, kind of have to dig and uncover, like I said, that first weekend was like, boom, 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 4 different things that came up. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Why is it like this? This is not who I proposed to. This is not the same Nancy that I thought I was in love with. Those little issues started to kind of diminish the physical connection. And so once that lack of physical connection reaches a certain level, it almost is like, now problems that are nowhere near the first 3 or 4 problems that I found, the problems that are like down here on this level, are starting to feel bigger because, oh, sex can't make up for it anymore. Or, oh, we can't just cuddle and make everything better because we're dropping that physical connection. So now it's like, what do we have? So something had to be almost like kickstarted, you know, in the relationship if we were going to even make it to the altar. And so that's when I was like, you know, and Nancy had a lot of conversations with me about this. A lot of them don't get shown, but it's like, listen, you have to almost force it, Bartise. You almost have to force it. And I hated that word. I hated when she would say that because we're talking about sex. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to have to force it with my wife. Like, what do you mean force it? She's like, this is a unique experiment. Like, you just got to force it. Just trust me with this. And it took me probably 3 or 4 days. I was like, finally, all right, you know what? I'll give in. We're going to force it and see what happens. And once we started doing that, that's when the better dates started happening with the salsa
and when you say force it, you're talking about try to get intimate.
Yes.
So did y'all get intimate on the first night?
First night we were. Because, I mean, it was all smooth sailing. Right?
Yeah.
It was all smooth
and then
sailing,
after that, it just kind of went away until y'all eventually had to kind of almost force an intimate connection again and, you know, go into the bedroom.
Right.
And did it help?
It did help. It did help. Because, I mean, it was a little, because, you know, like in a regular environment, regular relationship, you know, there's not an element of forcing. And I guess I've never experienced that. I've never experienced not cuddling before bed or like waking up and cuddling a little bit and I mean you get like a forehead kiss. But I remember she would complain because she saw my decline. I mean, the whole world saw my decline. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. If I'm not happy.
Yeah, she mentioned a few times you stopped giving forehead kisses.
Well, yeah, and that's a big thing of mine. And so like her calling me out for that is almost solidifying the fact that I am falling off a cliff in this relationship. So what do I do next? Either I force it or either I'm out now because it's like the last straw for us. So I remember literally like being like, hey, all right, when I get home tonight, we're flipping the switch. We're doing something different.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember I was like, listen, we're cuddling naked in bed tonight and see what happens. Because it'd probably been like 4 days since we had sex. And like, that is not normal for either of us. Because we were very honest with our sex lives.
Of course,
with what we're used to in our past relationships at that stage, 3 or 4 weeks in. So I was like, listen, when I get home, we're sleeping in the bed naked and we're cuddling, and if that doesn't work.
For people at home having similar issues, would that be one of the recommendations is, when you go to bed, get naked, cuddle naked, and, magic will spark?
Well, if it doesn't spark, then you got a real problem. But, either that or like, I was at a wedding a couple of years ago, and one of my good buddies, his mother-in-law gave a speech at the wedding and was like, I want to encourage, she had been married to her husband for a long time. And the advice she gave to them was, she called them naked Sundays. Naked Sundays. Just close the blinds in the house, wake up, make breakfast, but just do everything naked. And so, I would, if you're experiencing some struggles with the physical department, just take your clothes off and see what happens. Like, be comfortable with who you are and with who your partner is, and let them trust you and you trust them, and then see where that takes you. And that's what me and Nancy did. And that's why it kind of it picked up from there.
What switched that made you put this energy back into the relationship for the last few days before the wedding day?
I was upset when Nancy told me that the Bartise she fell in love with was not the Bartise in real life. And then it was like, okay, maybe this is not only a Nancy problem, maybe this is a us problem. Yeah. Because I am letting the problems that I'm experiencing in our relationship now impact my day-to-day to the point where Nancy's falling out of love with me. So now it's not a what can Bartise do different, what can Nancy do different? It's like, what can we do differently? And that's when it was the whole, okay, we're gonna get in bed naked and cuddle tonight and see where that goes. It's been a while since we had sex. That was the whole, what did we talk about in the pods? Oh, we talked about salsa dancing. Let's do a salsa dancing date, tattoo date, the bracelet date. It was like, let's put some actual effort here, because at my young, ripe, naive age of 25, I was like, this should be easy. I shouldn't have to work for it. We're just going to get married because this is how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be hard. That was hard. Okay. And because it was hard for me, it didn't feel right. And so that's why I was checked out.
And when you guys decided to give it one more shot, were things going on a positive note the whole way up to the wedding? Everything was great.
Everything was great. I remember we got to the bachelor party. That next day I flew out to Phoenix for the funeral, for my grandma's funeral. So I didn't see Nancy again until maybe 2 days before the wedding. They do weddings every day. So it's not all weddings on the same day. It's like they take the whole week. There's a wedding Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Ours was Thursday. So and we're not supposed to hang out together because these are all dark days. They don't want us, they don't want some problem to blow up and that cause something that's not seen. But we we hung out. We went and got massages together off camera and everything. And we're like, okay, well, I'll see you at the altar, I guess. And
how was that feeling? When it was like, I'll see you at the altar, I guess, was it like, I can't wait to see you, or was it still a little bit of a confused feeling? Like, well, I'm going to see you, but I don't, like, you still weren't sure if the yes was going to be there, right?
For either of us. I didn't know what she was going to say. I remember my family was convinced she's saying no, and watching it back, watching it back, it doesn't make sense to me why she said yes at the altar, watching it back, because it does not, it looks good, maybe episodes 8, 9, and 10, but in the middle, it does not look good. And then with me, it was like, I don't really know what I'm going to say. I still have to sit here and evaluate what the hell we just went through, because the last 2 weeks have been great. The middle 2 weeks were not great, and the pods were great.
So I guess the day of the altar, what were the feelings then? Did you know you were going to go up there to, tell the truth and, just tell how you really feel? Or did you go into it thinking the answer was you were going to say yes?
I was excited to get to that day because I knew I would know.
When you see her in the wedding.
I don't even know when I saw her, but I knew I was going to know at some point during that day. Okay. And I thought I knew prior to that gift. And then the gift sent me for a spiral. Okay, because prior to the gift, I was like, hey, this is gonna be hard, but I'm probably gonna say no. And that gift came back down, and I lost my mind. It was everything. It was the perfect gift that she could have sent me. It was everything small that we went through in our relationship together, and that rocketed me to like a yes. I mean, the flood of emotions, because I was like, how can I say no to this girl? So I was like, holy shit, like, am I going to say yes to just not hurt her? Or am I going to say yes because I love her and I want to spend the rest of my life with her? I weighed that, calmed down a little bit. My dad comes down and visits me, and I'm like, you know what? It can't be a yes, because this is like I said, the last 2 weeks and today is just part of it. It wouldn't make sense for me to risk the rest of my life based on a upward trending experiment.
When you stood there in front of her and she says, I do, did you feel like, did that catch you by surprise? Did you think she was going to say, I do not?
I had no clue what she was going to say. I had no clue. I was like, I could have seen her saying, I do not, to kind of protect herself, because I knew she was uncertain on what I was going to say as well. So I could have seen her saying, I do not. I also could have seen her saying I do and kind of putting the pressure on me.
When she said I do, in your head, did you already know that you were going to say I do not?
Yes.
Did it hurt to hear her say I do, knowing that you're about to break her heart?
It did. And I was, again, that was a moment where I was like, fuck, am I going to just say I do just to get out of here safe, you know?
Right.
And worry about it later.
Right. It seems like y'all were still having a conversation even after that, after everything walked out. So when you said I do not, could it have been something as simple, well, I'm not ready to marry you, but I don't want the relationship to end. Can we keep moving forward with this and keep dating? Or because it was on the show, it's like, if you say I do not, it's over with.
No, we absolutely could have kept something going. And that's what I thought was going to happen.
Right.
But Nancy kind of was like, this is clear as day for me. Like, you just said I do not. I was like, how is it clear as day? You just said I do. Right. Like, you just said yes for the rest of your life to me. And now, because I have one answer that could potentially mean not right now, you're saying I'm done with you forever. I'm like, that in itself doesn't make any sense. Like, you're done with me completely. You don't want anything to do with this. And she's like, yeah. She rips her bracelet off. And I'm like, all right. I have to respect that, I guess, because I am that asshole that said no at the altar, but at the same time, I'm still here giving you my reasons, saying it doesn't make sense right now. After getting cussed out by your mom and brother, you know, it's just like, I mean.
If y'all didn't end things there, and let's say y'all went on to date for a few more months, could you see yourself down the road being married to her and things working out?
That's a big question. A lot of people ask me that question. If I said no and she agreed to continue to date me, would we be married? I don't know if I can answer that, because I'll go back to my logic. It was an upward slending slope. I mean, the logic there is saying yes. Listen, I'm a normal person, just like everybody else is. I wake up, I put my pants on the same way. Just because I was on a reality TV show does not make me perfect. None of that cast, all 30 of us, none of us are perfect. Nobody in the world is perfect. If anybody was followed for 2 months of their life, just like we were, they would be just as much garbage dug up, just as, if not more. And so I think a lot of people commend me and Nancy for going on a show like this where we're going to expose ourselves to the world, because not a lot of people are okay with that.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for coming on to our show. I feel like we had a great conversation. You definitely opened up about a lot of the questions that we had, and you answered everything from your heart. If we missed out anything, leave a comment. Let us know what else we could have asked Bartise, and we can always get him on a FaceTime and answer some of those questions.
I don't live too far away, and there's a lot more stuff coming early this year, so I might be back to another one for y'all.
Let's do it. Yeah, because we want the audience out there to know the real you, and with this in-person interview, I feel like you really gave your true self. Unedited interview, of course, so everything is from you walking in to you walking out. So thank you again for sharing your story. You're always welcome back on our platform, and hope to see you again soon.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. This was a blast. Getting a great setup. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Talker. We're out. Thank you, guys.
Bye, y'all.